To start things off, I wanted to go through with you all about the worst draft classes for the Cleveland Browns since they returned in 1999. And to start things off, we're going to go in chronological order. We're going to go through and kind of take you through the years almost here. And to start things off, before we get into it, I want to give an honorable mention that didn't make this list, and that is the 2012 draft class for the Cleveland Browns, that being led by Trent Richardson and Brandon Weeden, although the bright spot came in round two with Mitchell Schwartz, offensive tackle out of Cal. But they do have Travis Benjamin, who's still in the league, as well as some lengthy NFL vets in there mixed in with Billy Wynn, as well as Travis Benjamin and John Hughes as well. Obviously, that was infamous with the Trent Richardson year, as well as Brandon Weeden in round one. But to start things off, we're going to start in 2005. I want to get into these because, again, I think it's a little interesting to look back on where in round one you had Braylon Edwards, a standout receiver out of Michigan, obviously only ended up playing with the Cleveland Browns for a few seasons before getting traded to the New York Jets. Played a big role in the Cleveland Browns 2007, 10, and 6 season before getting traded away. But when it comes to Braylon Edwards and that team, obviously you had Brodney Poole taken in round two, played well for the Browns for a while there as well. Then you had Charlie Fry in round three, who was swiftly traded away after week one in 2007. So a very short career here in Cleveland as well. When it comes to this, though, because of Brodney Poole's success that he had, obviously you already had some success when it came to Braylon Edwards, but obviously the drops led to a shorter career for him. And I'm not even going to don't even get me started about his takes on Cleveland currently, because I don't even understand what his thought process is there. But Braylon Edwards, 2005 draft class, I'm going to give it a C. I'm going to give it a C because, again, I think that the sustained success that you saw out of Brodney Poole, a little bit of success out of Braylon Edwards, obviously playing well in 2007, I think that you go ahead and throw that into the C tier there as well. Then we move on to the 2008 drafts, which famously you had the success of Joe Thomas in 2007. By contrast, because you had to move on from that one as well, in order to move on from 2007, you had Joe Thomas, you had the Brady Quinn trade initially, first-round draft pick, and traded away their first-round pick in 2008. They then followed that up by trading away their second and third-round picks, respectively, for defensive tackles Corey Williams and Shawn Rogers. Those guys ended up taking up those first 3 rounds for the Browns, who didn't make a pick until round 4, where they ended up selecting Bo Bell, linebacker out of UNLV. Followed that one up by taking Martin Rucker, tight end out of Missouri. Then you had the one big standout from this season, and that's Ataba Rubin, defensive tackle out of Iowa State. He played well for the Cleveland Browns in his career as well, but looking at that overall, I think that you see the sustained success out of Ataba Rubin. That's the only thing that's holding this back from an F tier at this point. So I go ahead and I look at the Bo Bell draft. I put that in the D tier. Put that in the D tier because, again, I think that you saw some success out of these guys, and I think that overall you look at that draft class, very small. You had some success from Alex Hall, linebacker out of St. Augustine's, and he was somebody who I think that the Browns relied on a little bit, but obviously not the sustained success that you would like to see out of your draft class. Following that up, you had the major trade in 2011 where the Browns moved down from 6 to 27 back up to 21. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put this draft class where they took Phil Taylor round 1, round 2, double dip, Jabal Sheard and Greg Little, wide receiver out of North Carolina. They were taken there. Jordan Cameron round 4. Obviously now doctor, then fullback Owen Marisek from Stanford. He's somebody that the Cleveland Browns selected. And then as well, they also took Buster Screen, Jason Pinkston, and Eric Hagg. So for me, when it comes to the 2011 draft class, I look at it and I go ahead, I give this a D. Now the reason being, or actually, you know what? I'll move it into the F. Reason being, that trade, not only the trade back, where they ended up giving up Julio Jones, but the trade up from 27 up to 21. If you remember, that draft pick that they traded away, that third-round pick, that became Justin Houston, one of the league's best and premier pass rushers. So Browns trading away an opportunity to go ahead and select him in 2011. That could have course-corrected a lot of the defense at that point, where they already had Jabal Sheard, where they selected in round 2. They select Justin Houston in round 3. All of a sudden now, you're looking at a completely different defense, and hell, they might not even have to bring in somebody like a Paul Kruger, who they ended up signing from the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm going to go ahead, put that one in the F tier. Now, we move on to 2013, and when I say that draft class was bad, there weren't a lot of successes that you saw in that draft class. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins being one of the big ones towards the end of the first round, but you saw a lot of misses by a lot of teams in that draft class. But the Browns had a pretty big one when it came to Barkevious Mingo, selecting him number 6 overall. But that wasn't the only one that they had, as in round 3, they selected Leon McFadden out of San Diego State, defensive back. The very next pick, Tyrann Mathieu, getting selected by the Arizona Cardinals. So he ended up going one pick later. Browns didn't make another selection until round 6, where they took Jamorius Slaughter, defensive back, out of Notre Dame. Followed that up by Armani Bryant, who had some success, but obviously had some issues with the NFL and suspension. So he ended up moving on, didn't have a long career in the NFL. Then you had Garrett Gilkey, offensive tackle from Chadron State as well. So when it comes to this one, look, they didn't have a ton of picks, but they didn't make the most out of any of them. So I'm going to go ahead and throw them in the F tier as well. You had contrast in 2011, contrast there to 2013, where you have a lot of picks, and then you had very few. Didn't really hit on many when it came to that 2013 draft class.